Hey y'all, I'm Rudy Fraser. I'm the founder and CEO of Blacksky Algorithms, and we are building a toolkit to allow communities to create online spaces that they control, from the moderation to the governance to the financial tools necessary to pool funds together, while still being connected to a global social ecosystem.
Hi, Rudy. Happy to see you here.
Yeah.
Hi, people. So for those who don't know about you, can you say a few words about you and Blacksky as well?
Yeah, so I'm Rudy. I'm the founder and CEO of Blacksky Algorithms, where we build tools to allow community builders to create online spaces that they and their community control fully, but are still connected to a global social media ecosystem. You can think of us as the Reddit for app protocol. We started as a single community, the Blacksky community, which is kind of the namesake and is the community that we're using to lead the way. It's the largest Black community on the decentralized web. Our custom feeds have been used by over 2.5 million people. We have to facilitate that and to create this toolkit, we have implemented the app protocol in Rust. We have a relay, a personal data server, et cetera. We're trying to create this toolkit where communities can control the algorithm that surfaces content in their spaces, can control the moderation for their community, can have governance and have their community decide the rules of that space, and then also can pool funds together as a way to keep their community sustainable. I've been working on Blacksky for 2 years now. I'm also a fellow at the Applied Social Media Lab at the Berkman Klein Center at Harvard University, as well as doing various other mutual aid organizing work with folks like We the People NYC and Pact Collectivist.
Wow, that's very impressive, and I personally adore Blacksky. It's great at what you are doing, and the amount of people, the users that you have already. Wow, very impressive. How did you come up with this idea, and how you started to do that? What was the initial inspiration?
Yeah, I feel like I understand community better than a lot of folks. I feel like community to me is not just a broad demographic like the sneakerhead community, for example. I think of community as this reciprocal relationship, mutual accountability between the individual and the group. And so I myself, in my upbringing, relied on community a lot. I grew up with a kind of collectivist kind of foundations and principles in just my family and my culture. My family's from Guyana in South America. And so I wanted to, when I struck out to kind of do my own startup, I wanted to work on something that felt true to myself. And so that led me to working on projects like Papertree, which is now underneath Blacksky. Papertree is like this community banking project that led me to working with mutual aid groups. And so the mutual aid organizing influences my work with Blacksky and kind of vice versa in some ways. The very first thing was, I signed up for Bluesky with the intent to be a developer on the platform. I was like user 50,000 or something. I launched the first custom feed there, and it immediately took off, and community and identity formed around it. Now, so much so that, with our latest round, we did a polis, we call it our People's Assembly, asking folks like, can other communities use the name Blacksky? And everyone was like, no, they have to ask permission first. So there's this thing that I created that now, tens of thousands of people they feel so strongly connected to the identity of it.
Maybe you can share some lessons learned, especially your success story of obtaining such a great amount of users in such a amount of time, just in 2 years. What would you recommend to builders or to community builders, any lessons from your story?
Yeah, I think I always say that I think if you're building social networks and or social media projects, you should have a good understanding of social dynamics and what why people do the things that they do. I think what's really exciting about App Protocol is there's a lot of different theories of change out there. There's folks working on germ network for like encrypted NN, encrypted DMs, and that their ideas like friends will have like basically like the group chat. The group chat, people will want to use App Protocol for their group chats. That'll be their theory of growth. My theory of growth is community. I think you can, like, people will want to find that kind of connection with their community. They'll meet online and then they'll meet in real life. Some people are like, maybe we need there's Skylight. They're working on the viral engine of growth. I think you should have an understanding of Blue Sky is like breaking news. Like, you should have an idea of the persona and user that you're looking to build for and understand why they're gonna take time out of their day. That, time is finite. You have to understand what is gonna bring them to your thing and keep them there. And that's, if you're in the social media space, that's something, there's some deep thing there that person that you're kind of acting on. So that's the thing that I learned. And in that, like, for me, even realizing that community was my kind of engine of growth. And community is definitely not to be taken lightly. If you, I think open source projects, see this a lot. I was just watching this documentary about Python and the change from Python 2.7 to Python 3 and how that was a breaking change. And, there was just a big backlash from that. You want to, as much as possible, you want to have your community feel involved, and be listened to. They're not top-down changes. You'll find that folks rebel against you and you ultimately lose trust. And we're kind of in the business of trust.
Here comes a question: how do you involve them, or how do you do that? Not like top bottom, but like bottom up more and more organic, or is there any ways to do that?
Yeah, I think from the technical side, we build open source. So we gave the code away for free from the very beginning. And in that way, that engenders trust because you can see the algorithm. And then we accept pull requests. So if you have the technical skills to change things, you can build. We're very welcoming. I also give credit to the community because people often have this idea of tech founders as this this individual who, through sheer force of will and I guess luck, is what makes them successful. And I've always credited the community with our success. Folks from the early days, I never did growth marketing or anything or ran ads somewhere else to promote Blacksky. It was always word of mouth. So right there, I'm grateful to the community. I show that gratitude. There were folks who wanted to build, they had certain ideas like, hey, we can make the algorithm more, communally governed. You can have your, instead of just you, Rudy, taking down posts from the feed, you could have other people control that. So someone built a tool to do that. Boom, let's promote that. Let's, shout you out for that. People wanted to get involved with the projects. The moderators, we recruited our moderators from our community. So it was people who were deeply invested already and had trust and safety backgrounds who we brought onto the team and then compensated them for their moderation work. So really rewarding your community. There are folks who are like, hey, I want to see, it's great what you're doing. There are folks who made a fellowship, the Emoji Fellowship. Shout out Linda. She created this fellowship to get folks from the Blacksky community into the Atmosphere Conference, App Protocol's first conference. So getting your community involved, listening to them, I think those are very important. And now in a very formal and practical way, we have a fork of Polis called our People's Assembly. And we've ran that over the course of the last 2 weeks, and over 600 people have participated in that process, over 22,000 votes, 200 statements written, to decide on what our community guidelines are. So our community is literally drafting the guidelines for our community. And so, yeah, I think that we're always trying to make that this more democratic process for how the platform is ran.
Wow, I'm even more impressed now because it seems really organic and really healthy is where you grow. Wow, good job. But now, the reality is, how do you feel the current political situation? Like, does it affect you and like Blacksky, or you still remain more like untouched by that?
Yeah, definitely. So, in general, U.S. politics for Blacksky as the Blacksky community, I always make the distinction between Blacksky Algorithms, the company, and Blacksky, the community, because I speak for as the CEO of the company, but not as that for the community. But for the community, there was always during the U.S. Presidential elections, there was, if we were going off of like traditional growth metrics, those are actually our peak times. Like if something big happened in the news, there would be people coming to the Blacksky feed to like have conversations about it and see what folks are saying. And then with the Trump's win in the last election, we had a big migration and an influx of users. Now we're seeing free speech really get threatened. Since the situation with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, there's been sharp crackdowns. We're seeing celebrities lose their jobs, like Jimmy Kimmel's show got pulled. There are Washington Post journalists, Black women journalists, who are getting fired for their posts that they make on Bluesky. There's state laws around age verification, which, it's hard to take the stance of like, like the laws are brought about to say like to protect children. And it's obviously hard to take the stance of like, being against protecting children. But really the problem is the way those laws get implemented. Some of them deputize parents to be able to sue a company directly if there's any content that is adult content anywhere on their site. We saw Bluesky's response to that. They shut off access to Mississippi. We were able to say that in our client, we're not tracking location. So, we simply won't, we can't comply with this law because we don't track anyone's geolocation. But yeah, so there's lots of, I think the political climate is very, it's very, tricky right now. And so it definitely affects us. We've had calls, especially because of the crackdown on free speech, we've had calls to create more private spaces for Blacksky, which was always the plan, because there's always, when Black folks speak truth to power, there's always a backlash on the back of that. And so that was already in our plans, but now it's even more urgent to do that.
Yeah, so here comes a question about privacy, like, and its role, and how do you see it implemented, or like how do you use it now, and how important that, like, to preserve this freedom and freedom of speech?
Yeah, I think privacy is a tricky one because there are so many different end user expectations of privacy, and Ad Protocol, for those who don't know, is primarily, it's public data right now. So every action that a user takes, every follow, every post, every like is published to a firehose of information that is permissionless and accessible by, just about anyone. And so that in itself is a bit of a surveillance nightmare. The feds are definitely listening to the Ad Protocol firehose. And so keeping stuff off of the firehose has become more important. How we implement what those things are, I think there's you have to assess the level of paranoia. If you want to create, we had conversations and basically there's working groups set up for this now of how do we as a protocol and community roll out these solutions. But, if you want to start the blow up NYPD squad cars, group, then you probably want something end-to-end encrypted. If, most people's expectation is at least a Twitter style, Instagram style private account where you can hit private account and then people have to ask your permission to see your content by requesting to follow you, and then everything you have is locked down. That's also kind of difficult with the protocol design today, because even if you had something that did that, your posts are already out there, they're already in somebody's database, so it's not like you can ask for those things back. So so privacy, I think the implementation of it, everyone has to kind of assess what needs they're trying to meet, and then try to you can't do, I don't think you can do everything, but some people want a circle, Google circles, not just your followers, maybe this like collective of people can have access to your stuff. Maybe you need end-to-end encrypted stuff. Maybe you just need like some kind of like a privacy aware, like access control lists, you know? So, and for us, we're trying to find that balance of, we can't wait. Like the urgency is so much and the user base is there. So we can't wait for everyone else to figure out something for us. We have to like just kind of ship things and do as much harm reduction or like risk reduction as we can up front. And then kind of evolve that over time with the rest of the ecosystem.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's so many things I would like to discuss with you, but unfortunately we have just a few minutes, so we need to round up. So it's like 2 more short questions. Mm-hmm. So first one, your take on cypherpunk. Like, what do you think of it in general, and what does it mean to be a cypherpunk now comparing to like 80s when it emerged?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my take on cyber, I really like the idea of, I know someone, a colleague from Nostra was saying yesterday, like, no one's coming to save us. Like, that's kind of how I feel about it. You know, I have very like anarchistic tendencies, again, with the mutual aid organizing that I do. I believe in communities being able to, you know, rely on each other in order to be able, like, not necessarily libertarianism, but like libertarian socialism, like being able to organize horizontally and take care of one another. And I really look to the power building movements of the past, like the Black Panthers and stuff, and that kind of Black autonomy and self-determination. And so I think the idea of using cryptographic primitives in order to achieve that, to be able to build up your spaces and your systems and, you know, be able to do, you know, build up your economic power and community. And then knowing that in itself, especially for like Black folks doing that kind of work, will make you a target of the state. And then being able to have these like systems in place for like privacy preserving stuff so that you can minimize risk. And so I think it's what's changed is that it's a much more diverse set of folks, right, who are participating in this. There's the average consumer is much better educated on this stuff. I think we can all be cypherpunks. You know, I don't even think it has to be like a fringe movement. They laid the groundwork. A lot of their early visions have been implemented, and now we have to like, we do have to meet the current moment. And I think we can bring a lot more people along for that. And I think you can see, you can use a lot more interesting technologies and paradigms for how we build those things in the future.
100%. So, and the last one. So imagine some years from now, and we have the internet that we want. We have it private, secure, diverse. How it will look like, this perfect internet of future.
Mm-hmm. I think what's funny is what happens is when there's never like across the finish line and like everyone cheers. I think you find that problems are resolved and then you kind of immediately go on to the next thing. And so I think if this base is there, you know, like we see this with like Blacksky, like we set out to like, our moderation was to eliminate anti-Black harassment and misogynoir. And, you know, and we did that. So the feeds are free of racism and harassment. Now the next thing is like, okay, how do we exist with each other now that we're not worried about the racists? Like, what are our guidelines? Like, how do we process things? What's okay? What's not okay? When is sexual content okay on the feed? You know, and so I think if we have the internet that we want, where you can, you know, you're not worried about someone shutting down your bank account. You can speak and organize freely with your friends in an online space. You can, if you had to, you can move around your data as much as you'd like. Maybe you have these verified credentials, like that replaces like a passport or some kind. I don't know. Have we abolished the nation state at this point too? Like there's like, you know, maybe that's the thing that happens, or maybe there's just much more powerful, like the mutual aid organizers, the folks like Stop Cop City. Maybe they don't get a RICO, and maybe we do actually have. What I want to see is that once we have this like internet base of operations, we can then do things in the real world that allow us to fight back against the, like, you know, because the internet won't protect you from the men with the guns, but so you got to do stuff in real life. But once you have those things where, you know, you're not worried about the money being taken, or like people like looking to connect all these dots, especially under this like really fascistic government in the U.S., I think you can do more powerful on the ground movements. And so I would like to see, especially at least in the U.S. I mean, maybe it's also like movements around the globe get more connected, but then and then these kind of bad governments are put more in check by the people. That's what I would like.
Oh, that would be awesome. So, thank you for coming. Really appreciate it. A beautiful talk. I'd like to talk for 1 more hour. Unfortunately, we don't have it. Thanks for watching. Ciao.